All right. Another week. It's Sunday. Stuff's happening. Stuff's moving. It's been a really interesting time in the Hedera ecosystem. I think you could safely say like this year. We've had it, it's had its ups and downs, right? But something really interesting happened, I believe, today. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was today. The Hedera mainnet hit 6 billion transactions. And this is, I guess it makes sense to just kind of dive into our first story here, just as I'm kind of vamping, getting the show started, because it's really been on my mind. And I think it's kind of a key indicator of growth on the network, and also too how quickly the community changes and adapts to the current state of the network. And this recent milestone of 6 billion transactions, I think, really solidified that. And I say this because when we hit 1 billion transactions, obviously huge celebration, excitement. Same with 2 billion transactions, 3, 4, even 5 billion transactions, right? Huge wave. Now, 5 billion transactions is a huge psychological level, right? It's halfway to 10 billion. And where we're at now, we hit 6 billion. And according to the tweet from Hedera, that was 1 billion transactions in 17 days. So where my mind's at is I don't really see the community celebrating as we approach these, next billion transactions sequentially. It's kind of like it's less and less of a big deal. And in the big scheme of things, it is a huge deal. I mean, billions of transactions on a DLT. That's massive. But there's two sides to this, right? Internally, like within the Hedera community, it's kind of become the norm. And it's really just, it's happened so fast. It was only January that we were at low double-digit TPS. And we had been in that place for, felt like years, probably literally it was years. And like that, snap your fingers, and we had a little step function, right? And that's the new norm. And we've really adjusted to it. And it was so weird to see the kind of 6 billion transaction milestone hit. I usually make a big fuss about it. And, am I going to be doing a huge celebration every 2 weeks at this point? There's those two sides to it. The other side to it is, when we look on the outside, people still don't know a ton about Hedera. They don't understand the importance of, high throughput DLT, high transactions. And also too, there's still misunderstanding about what these transactions are in comparison to other networks and stuff. So I still it's hard in my brain to kind of reconcile those two things, that it's happened so quickly. It's kind of like taken off like a rocket, but also, it's going to continue to take a long time for that to kind of permeate throughout the broader crypto ecosystem. Because as we've learned, time and time again in many different instances, like Hashgraph is a really disruptive, technology. It really is. And I think that it freaks a lot of people out, but it's also exciting. And on top of that, now we have people within Hedera and Swirlds, the HBAR Foundation, kind of being like, hey, there's going to be more of this. We're going to see substantial increases in network usage on all fronts. We are seeing account creation tick up. So this is the kind of thing, and this is on the backdrop of everything else happening. In previous episodes, we've talked about all the crazy stuff with the banks, some of the different use or different projects and other ecosystems, failing in different things. And on the other side of this, just in the last couple of weeks, there's an exponential Cambrian explosion happening in all different areas, right? You could look at it kind of happening a little bit within the Hedera ecosystem maybe, but when you look more broadly, there's other industries like, the big one right now is AI, artificial intelligence. And there's certain technologies that have been around for years. And when you apply a new interface to it, like a chat, it unlocks so many different things for people. And that's seen huge growth and improvement. I mean, recent versions of AIs have been released that are, 100-fold improvements over the previous ones that were just released months ago. So it just feels like in all cases, being within the Hedera ecosystem, on the backdrop of everything happening, it's incredible the amount of things happening. Before we kind of kick things off and get things rolling, just on the AI thing too, I'm going to be talking with Patches, just in a bit here once we get through a couple news items, because Patches has been using AI for a bunch of really fascinating things that kind of speaks to that intersection between Hedera Hashgraph and AI. Because that's where a lot of people are at right now. A lot of people that are excited about AI, there's a big crossover in the crypto community. And when we look at the Hedera Hashgraph ecosystem in particular, and ways that AI is going to impact this ecosystem, but also how Hashgraph as a technology could impact AI. It's really fun stuff to think about. It's a very specific conversation. I think this is the perfect show to have it on. So I'll be talking with Patches soon. But just to close off my thoughts on kind of this topic is the key that unlocked AI and got people excited about it was two things, right? It was a new user interface, right? A chat, and meeting people where they were at. That's what took place, and we saw the results of that. We saw the impact. And that's also too what needs to happen with crypto, and that's something we always talk about as well, right? With these DLT technologies, with Hedera, with Hashgraph. It's about what are some better interfaces? How can we integrate with people's lives, meet people where they're at? And there's a wave right now, and people are riding it, right? So strap in. And we're live on Twitter Spaces with another week in Hashgraph to unpack. Let's take a quick look at what we're going to talk about today. We got quite a bit. I mean, we talked about the 6 billion transactions. Boom, that's checked off the list. Hedera tweets out something cryptic, for a change. We got Citadel Wallet news. We got people getting awards. We got the HBAR bullet, the weekly update with some, big insights. We've got the DLT Science Foundation. We've got a Hedera Treasury Management Report update. We've got Coupon Bureau updates. My goodness, Microsoft's making moves. FSCO's making moves. Account creation on the network has jumped up. We got governing council members doing things. We got HBAR available in Japan now. TPS is rocking. And we also have some, of course, the usual rumors, breadcrumbs, all those good things. And if you need to catch on previous week's news, head over to itsbrandond.com/HBAR, where you'll find past episodes, because I can't talk about everything in each episode. And with that, good evening from Ottawa, Canada, everyone. My name is Brandon Davenport, and I'm a developer and artist and creative agency owner at Dirksen & Davenport Incorporated. And like all of you, I'm a Hashgraph enthusiast. It is Sunday, March 26th. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Real quick, I'm using these new headphones and they don't hold my hair back. So apologies if you hear me creaking and all sorts of things. These headphones are very loud. Welcome to Hashgraph News episode. Jesus, Murphy. Give me a moment here, folks. Oh, there we go. I literally had a piece of my hair go right into my eyeball. I'm okay. Welcome to Hashgraph News and Rumours episode 70, Exponential Times. This is a weekly show that covers the top stories related to Hedera, HBAR, and everything in between. Broadcast live on Twitter Spaces every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and made available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, every Monday Get all the info you need about the show and listen to past episodes at itsbrandond.com/HBAR. If you're listening live, check out the Twitter thread pinned to the top of the spaces to take a deeper dive into each story. Also, everybody listening, take a moment now to share the spaces. Let your friends know you're listening. The more, the merrier. You can also click the little comment button at the bottom right of the spaces to ask a question or share something interesting that listeners might like to know, and I'll talk about it. And of course, we're going to have Patches on a bit later. So if you have a question for him, throw it in there. Also, this is a reminder to join the Hashgraph enthusiast Twitter community, a great way for Hashgraph newbies and early adopters to connect, team up, share knowledge and insights. The link to join is in the thread as well. And the show continues to grow from hundreds to thousands of listeners. And that's because of people like you that take the time out of their day to listen. The show is by far one of my favorite things to do. If you're interested in becoming a supporter of the show, please consider making an HBAR donation. It helps continually add value to the Hashgraph community and keeps the show ad-free. You can send a donation to enthusiast.hbar using your Hedera wallet. Brought to you by listeners like you. So usually we look over the, prices of different HTS assets, all those different types of things. I mean, what could be said? I mean, Grelf is doing all sorts of weird things. That's some kind of meme coin. Maybe I'll have him on the show sometime. We got Dovu making a couple moves. I mean, HBAR suite jumped up 100% with the news of, maybe a DEX going live. I know their audit's going and stuff like that. So things are popping in the HTS ecosystem. Check it out. Use your best judgment, do your due diligence, even more so just because this is an early ecosystem, but there are lots of fun goodies out there. Let's take a quick look at one account metric that we can focus on is account creation. So we see a huge spike in account creation on the network. And this goes hand in hand with TPS, right? Two key performance indicators, right? KPIs for the Hedera network is how many accounts are being created, how many transactions are being pushed through. Those are two important numbers that are looked at. And there was a post on the community subreddit, the Hedera community subreddit 5 days ago. 15,000 accounts created within 24 hours. There have been these periods of time recently where we have massive spikes in account creation for some use case. Let me take a look at just the dashboard here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 obvious spikes. One on the 21st, another on the 21st, another on the 21st, and then we have another on the 24th. So what these are for, there's a bit of speculation. So basically, some folks are saying, it could be, FSCO. FSCO is a use case. We had the CEO as a guest on a previous episode, and it's really interesting because it's another supply chain use case. It's a tech stack that integrates a DLT, and they've migrated it from MasterCard's Providence DLT to Hedera to use it for that component of their tech stack. And the other side is all sorts of different things that they can do, including recording MasterCard payments. So it's this really interesting use case. It's another supply chain use case similar to Atma.io from Avery Dennison. It is rumored that these are accounts being created by FSCO. Now, in my mind, it would make sense with the timing of everything. On the 20th, just a day before that, they responded to a tweet of mine specifying that, they were live. So I wouldn't be shocked if it was them. But also, too, there's another use case called Zenny. And let me take a look here on their website. Literally, I don't know if I've heard of it. But it's basically like a travel use case, booking hotels, booking flights, and not quite sure what it could be. I have seen things on the on the main net, things like Xbucks. There are topic IDs related to it as well. So To be honest, it is just as, they've created 14 tokens, including Xbucks, Zenny USD, Zenny Euros, Zenny Canadians, Zenny Australians. So obviously some form of stable coins. So to be honest, it's just as likely that this could be the Zenny use case, or it could be FSCO. I'm not sure. It's clear that we've got use cases coming live, and we'll talk a little more about some other things that are happening. But account creation spikes, not 100% sure what it is, but there are some really good hypothesis about what they could be. Another thing is just on, use cases going live with some concrete updates. We've talked so many times about the Coupon Bureau and the new AI 8112 coupon standard. Now, something that's really, really interesting is there was an interview. Perfect. Tudor from Head Starters listening. He provided some more details on Zenny just in the comments there, so folks are curious that are listening live. Check it out. Shout out to you, Tudor. So in the Coupon Bureau, we talk about it a lot, obviously. So Ted Rubin interviewed Brandy Johnson from the Coupon Bureau. We got some really interesting insights. I'm going to just go through a couple key notes from the interview that took place. So off the top, the Coupon Bureau distributed 158 billion coupons last year. And that doesn't even count on a transactional level for redemptions, all those different types of things. So we're talking big, big numbers. And in this video, key questions are, what's holding this use case back from going live? What is effectively the key value proposition for retailers, for brands? What's the status? So here's some key, insights from this interview. The Coupon Bureau is working on industry-wide solutions for coupon problems, of course, introducing a new coupon standard to replace the old format, 8110. Issues with the old format is basically susceptible to fraud, lack of attribution. There's all sorts of other things too when it comes to remittance, settlement of different discounts, retailers or brands needing to hold on to huge cash floats, massive delays, physical coupons in bags being sent to be manually counted places. It's nuts. So, when it comes to all these different things, the coupon format enables real-time data transfer and supports retailer agnostic digital coupons, which is huge. Retail agnostic basically means that these coupons are going to be truly controlled by the brand. And a key thing in this interview that really set a light bulb moment off in my mind is why they're pushing for the standard is, and this is what Brandy highlighted is, when you want to do special things with coupons or a retailer has some kind of fun utility, we could say, that they want to bring to the consumer, the retailer has to take on a certain amount of tech debt to make it happen. With this new standard, it creates that tech stack in the middle where at this point now the retailer is going to be able to take on this new standard and then not have to worry about these iterative updates to various brands' initiatives, which is great. But the problem is, and a key piece of resistance is just a change in technology, right? When we saw this use case going live, it was delayed mostly because of a struggle getting retailers to adapt to the new standard, which makes sense. And I mean, we just came off of the holiday season, all those different types of things. So this is arguably linked to supply chain. This is a retail use case. Resistance to change is a challenge. But this is what has to happen. Some other insights is, obviously they are talking about it being built on Hedera. And they're definitely leaning on the fact that it's, enterprise grade, all those different types of things. They're supported by trade associations, clearinghouses, and brands like Procter & Gamble. It can also work with SNAP benefits and different things like that. So, basically that's the key update and the key insight here. We've heard it before, but in this kind of interview, that's the key takeaway for me is, the choke point here is retailers, being resistant to change, basically, which I get. But at the same time, listen, we talked previously about there was a mom and pop grocery store and a mom and pop ice cream shop that leveraged the new standard. Let's get with the times, because this is really going to be huge on so many different levels. I've talked about it a ton. Let's move on. If you want to hear more about coupons, listen to literally any past episode of this show. Literally. We've also got news from the DLT Science Foundation. What is that about? So the DLT Science Foundation launched to expand knowledge and adoption of distributed ledger technology. The DSF focuses on 3 key areas: education, innovation, and research. So the support provided by the foundation and grants and members of the DSF network. These include Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So obviously we've got a couple governing council members in there: London School of Economics, University of Singapore, University College London, right? Hedera, an open source leaderless proof of stake network, initially supports the DSF. So there's funding of up to $5 million for eligible individuals. And so this is another initiative, and it's one of many. We've talked quite a bit about all of these different initiatives happening, and it's worth just highlighting this with, again, the backdrop of this bear market, all these different crazy things happening. And some of these key partnerships and initiatives and supports that the broader kind of Hedera ecosystem is participating in is really exciting for me. I'm really happy to see this, because when we look at where we're at right now with everything, and the fact that, we saw so many different key banks that a lot of VC money depend on, all those different types of things, in so many different pockets, there's been some cash that's just dried up. And when we look at Hedera, the HBAR Foundation, all the different affiliated, foundations and grant programs and all these different types of things, they're continuing to kick up. Like, this is, I really like this, and they're doing it in a global fashion, which is important, right? We're seeing some of these initiatives in India, I believe Switzerland, all these different types of things. So I'm happy to see that. I think that's great. Also too, just kind of on the global, track here, we did see an update from Blade Wallet. They've partnered with Mercury, and they've collaborated to accelerate enterprise adoption of the Hedera network in Japan, with HBAR becoming the first non-blockchain token approved for listing in the country. So I know this has been in the works for years. And this is pretty big, because it's notoriously very difficult to be listed on, in this market. And when you think about somebody in Japan looking at different offerings, and you look at Hedera, HBAR, the technical aspects of it, the enterprise grade nature of it, that's a great first impression. I'm really excited to see what action this brings. I'm not sure if it's a situation where people in Japan were kind of like knocking down the doors trying to get HBAR. I feel like it could be a little bit more of a discovery, but what's the best marketing? It's being kind of like on those top 10 lists in an exchange. So some details about that announcement. So basically, from the press release that was put out, a couple key things was in here. Enterprise adoption of Web3 technology in Japan has accelerated significantly over the past year due to continued efforts by the regulators to provide legislative clarity for business operating in the country. That's one aspect. Also, the other thing is the listing and approval of HBARs in Japan paves the way for an acceleration of enterprise adoption in the third largest economy in the world. And you look at also to some of the governing council members. Honestly, I really think this is going to be a big point of discovery. So great announcement. Good to see. I dig it. Microsoft, when we want to talk about impacts, just a quick little sidebar, quick little side note, not really related to Hedera, but just worth pointing out. Microsoft's moving and shaking. They've got their Chat GPT stuff going on. They did announcements with their Office, Office 365 or whatever it is. Super cool. Something that kind of flew under the radar a little bit was the fact that they are testing a built-in cryptocurrency wallet into their Edge browser. So yes, we are seeing major companies with built-in native non-custodial wallets in a web browser, right? So look at Microsoft Edge. Some key points of this is the wallet has, quote, simplified experiences and, quote, integrated security features. And it has been a little bit controversial internally, which I understand. I mean, when you step outside the crypto bubble, definitely some of this stuff comes up for debate sometimes. But those, quote, simplified experiences, I understand what that's about. This is, again, what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Really trying to meet people where they're at with these new technologies, kind of doing what Chat GPT did with, putting a chat interface over a really complex AI. That's what we're starting to see now. We're starting to see these larger companies hop on the wave. They don't want to miss the train on all fronts. So how much longer is it going to be before one of these like nightly canary builds of, Chromium or Google Chrome has a built-in, crypto wallet? That's going to be wild. And I think that day is coming soon. So it's these types of things that send signals to people, that mass adoption, maybe it's not like coming in hot yet, but pieces are now being put in place in a much different fashion, which is exciting. I want to talk about one more thing before I jump in with Patches here. And Patches, feel free to pop up whenever you have a moment. Citadel Wallet. Citadel Wallet is developing the first kind of bespoke hardware wallet for the Hedera ecosystem that will support all different transaction types and assets. If you want more details about Citadel Wallet, I had HBAR to the Moon on as a guest on a previous episode of the show. Definitely go listen to that one. But the big news here is they published a video of an actual physical demo of the wallet signing a transaction for a NFT transfer. And this is exciting because we haven't seen a hardware wallet that can interface with the network to authenticate this transaction type, right? That's really big. A ledger can only send HBAR. So being able to send an NFT with a hardware wallet, that's a pretty big deal. And I know that as well, something that a community member pointed out to me just in my DMs was they have a waitlist mint on the 29th. So I know from my interview, they were planning on really starting to push things live and get things rocking. So this is one to watch, and it's special. I mean, this is a hardware wallet designed for the Hedera ecosystem. So I really dig it. Now, let's talk about AI. Let's have a conversation about this. I know this is a news and rumors show, but the reason I want to talk about AI is because it does impact most aspects of what we do in the Hedera community, right? A lot of us do similar things. Sometimes we have jobs that require us, to code and all sorts of different things like that. We've heard the stories. We've heard about Chat GPT and all these different types of things. But it's been some time. It's been months. And now we're starting to hear what are people actually doing with it? And more specifically, what are people in the Hedera ecosystem doing with it? What are the results? What are the benefits? What are the potential concerns? And what should HBAR have top of mind right now? And, what ways should they dive in and check it out? So, Patches, CEO of Turtle Moon Command Center, no introduction needed, has been using Chat GPT. We've been having, some crazy DMs back and forth. And I'm so happy to have you on the show, man. I'm excited to talk about AI and, what it means for us in the Hedera community. So welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on and inviting me up. We definitely go deep in our DMs, and I think we're definitely on the same page with just the monumentous events that we're living through and the conceptual changes that are going to slowly occur societally and technology-wise. It's really hard to like articulate the moment, but I think nothing explains it a little like better than the 7 days it took for an entire plugin library that connected OpenAI to all data sources on the internet, thus indexing them and bringing conversational UI to those data sets. And it's that using technology to build new technology to build new technology, that now ChatGPT-4 exists, and it's so prolific in being able to engineer. The rate and exponential rate of change has just kind of hit this inflection point, and we're going to just kind of have our minds blown daily by what people are doing. Like the news that I know that I'm pretty sure we were talking about, that in 7 days, 5 new AI programs that are open source for image manipulation and video manipulation have come live, all completely enterprise grade. And that's in 7 days, 5 new programs that didn't exist have been created to do that. And that's another example of what's happening on the bleeding edge of tech and the realization of this prolificness that's going to come from this invention, or this open access to AI to assist you.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the name of the show this week is Exponential Times. It's like, I truly feel like whether we like it or not, we're strapped in the roller coaster now, and we're clicking our way up, and we've kind of like dove down, and we're going down the hill with our arms up, screaming, having some fun. I mean, there's so many different things that this stuff does, but I mean, I think that so many people have had their ears talked off about AI, and still I don't think that's enough. Like, it's near impossible to keep up with all the advancements, especially what you highlighted that's happened over the past 7 days. But like, when we actually look at the difference between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, and then also what was before GPT, like, obviously AI there were certain things people would use for social media, and you could do like, DALL-E and stuff like that. So there's all these interesting things that happened. But when GPT came out, it was like this, massive exponential change. And then I don't think people understand what a massive exponential change GPT-4 is. And I think it might be because it's the same interface. It doesn't really feel different, but I don't know about you, but I just feel a huge difference between the two. I'm very sad when my 25 messages for the 3 hours runs out.
Yeah, I mean, it's 540 times more data point knowledge in its neural net. So the way that it dissects data, it's a linguistic language model, LLM, and it has an ability to give you the answer, which hasn't really been, Google was what we had. That was a Google it. It became how you get information and data, and you would go and you'd kind of like broadly scan data, and you'd find things that are close to what you're looking for, and find a couple things that make sense, stitch them together, use it, and be like, okay, well, this is what I was looking for, and I found it. And an exponential change is now you ask the problem, and it can detail the answer and then detail exactly how to do that answer. And so you remove an insane amount of personal need to search and time of the information, and it's that aggregate into a conversational user interface that is really no barrier to entry, right? Like, anyone can talk, right? Most people can talk to a computer and ask it a problem it's having, whatever you're trying to solve. And so when the friction becomes zero, and that computer can now code and engineer better than me, of 15, been engineering for 15 years, and it shows me enhancements in my code. You pair that together, and the barrier to people's, expression and what they want to create is so low. This is a Hedera audience. I'm sure we've all heard Lehman talk about how he just wants to wave his hand in the air and create a world where people can go and be, inside of this creative world with tokenized assets. And that became, so much more plausible, because there's the filters on Instagram no longer paste a different image on top of it. It realigns the bits in live time of the image to then make it as if you had makeup on. And so with that technology paired with a conversational UI that can digest insane amounts of data at the same time, changing things on the fly through a conversational user interface makes sense. So you can have a video camera videotaping a back alley while what's actually recorded has other bytes that show action movie being filmed and people shooting at each other and all of these things happening. And the data stream can be manipulated based on just input. And so, again, these are just like little examples of how all digital media has changed overnight, where I will no longer see a video or an image, a phone call, music. I will no longer assume that was created by a human or real without any manipulation, because it's so massively adopted and spread and easy to do that if you still interact with the internet as you did 2 weeks ago, I think you're going to get duped a lot. There's going to be a lot of scams that have come out, and it's going to be, if you don't learn to change your mindset on how you interact with digital content, you're going to be swept up in the change, in that exponential change, unfortunately, because these things that we used to be able to look at and say, okay, well, that's definitely real, that has just been demolished from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I have to relate with you, and I mean, it's tough because I was thinking about this. I was walking around today. I had to grab some groceries, and I was thinking, I was kind of like, where, what's the line there, right? And something that I did for this episode of the Hashgraph Enthusiast News and Rumours show is I used Chat GPT to help me, right? And you could kind of say that this week it was a little bit of a co-host with me, because some of the stuff that I have to do, and I mean, I spend hours on every episode when it comes to preparation and all those different types of things. And a lot of that time is listening to interviews, watching videos, taking notes, reading over Reddit comments, absorbing conversations, and pulling out key insights, right? And this week, I had a bit of a light bulb moment. And this speaks to the difference between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. I did something that I don't think I could have done in the old AI, which was I was looking at this really kind of important Reddit post that warranted a pretty nuanced conversation surrounding subject matter that I know really, really well as a Hashgraph enthusiast. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try something. On the webpage, I just highlighted and copied the entire part of the, Reddit website that had the comments in it, and pasted it into Chat GPT. And that included, I'd say probably 30% of it was garbage, because it was certain user interface elements, right? Like the like, upvote, downvote, user image, username, user flair, all those different types of things you'd have on Reddit. So a lot of it was just kind of strange, but there was the message content, there was the timestamp, and there was other different things that were important to, as a human reading it, being able to understand the conversation and what was relevant to doing that. I pasted that huge amount of text into Chat GPT 4, and I said, can you summarize this conversation to me in bullet point form? And it did just that. And I was reading over what it had summarized. I knew the subject matter. I had read over the conversation, and I said to myself, I could take some more time and put together a summary like this. But in the big picture of stuff, this is a podcast and a Twitter space. And I just need to be able to share key insights with the community. And what's great is I had more time to dive into each of those different pieces and nuances, and then, almost ask it follow-up questions or do a little bit extra research on that. And what I realized was, this reminds me of that old saying where it's like, something greater than the sum of its parts, right? 1 + 1 = 3. And I think of this show and I go, there's so many different things that I do for the show every week that do take time. It's a labor of love. and I think it's a great show. But I think it's going to be so much better because in some different pieces, this AI is going to do a really great job incredibly quickly and allow me to have a better show. Not because it changes the show or because, it influences the show in a big way, more so that it just makes some of these parts much better. So it's the same amount of parts, it's the same stuff, but now the sum is even greater. And I've heard some things you've been talking about in regards to certain things, like tooling, different experiments, dipping your toes in Solidity coding and smart contracts, and almost kind of doing the same thing, like looking at these different tasks and initiatives you have to do, leaning on the AI and seeing some serious results. I wanted you to, let's steer the conversation a little bit into the intersection of AI and Hashgraph, right? And I mean, people that are building and have visions that they want to execute in this ecosystem. You're one of these people. You're leveraging AI. Can you give us some examples of things that you've done in collaboration with the AI that has, increased the sum of these parts that you're working on?
Yeah, I've definitely been experimenting. The latest experiment has been a Discord bot that can do just a bunch of things, from playing a trivia game to guessing numbers game to blackjack, to asking it questions. And it's actually used Chat GPT 4 to write a Discord bot for Chat GPT 3, the AI or the API. So, it's kind of crazy that it can engineer itself into things, but it worked very well. I think that the caveat of all of the engineering things is that if you haven't experienced engineering, you can get a lot done. And the more you know about engineering, the more articulate you can be. Because when I run into an issue and I know, okay, well, the event lister is not being fired because of this thing, I can be articulate in my response on how it needs to restructure the code. When if you don't understand technology, you might not be able to diagnose the issue, because right now, every now and then there's bugs, mainly because the update of the brain was at 2021, so some of the packages are wrong, some of the code's been updated. But just continuing on to other things I've created with GPT-4 is the smart contract reader and executed platform. So I don't really know Solidity, or at least I didn't last week on Friday. And over the weekend, I used ChatGPT-4 to not just create something I knew I wanted to create, but to ask it, what's the best method of solution for this problem? And then dive into that, and then take those answers that it gave me and create that platform. And so at the end of the weekend, I have a smart contract reader. You can upload an API file and see all the functions. You can execute and deploy a smart contract on the Hedera and then execute function. And every time you select one in the user interface, it will auto-inject the parameters. So it's a very versatile tool that anything that's deployed, if you have the API file, you can fire the functions on mainnet very, very easily from any user interface. And I wrote probably 5-10% of the code. So it's very powerful. It's an education tool that, unlike Google, again, where you have to search for pieces of data and put them together, I think it's an easier learning experience because you see the problem that you have be logically executed in front of you in real time. And so it's a one-to-one of expectation and payoff, instead of, again, like stringing together a bunch of different answers that are sort of what you're looking for, and then you get the final answer. So I'm very encouraged by that on how it can change people's approach to learning. And I think over the next couple months, people are going to understand better how to do prompts better, because that is a skill set. You hit roadblocks a lot if you don't understand that you're talking to an AI bot and not Google, because it is a conversational interface. It does help if you treat it like it's a person you're talking to, and you'll get more verbose answers out of being polite, which is weird, to say the least, but it is true. And I think there's like mathematical reasons on, why, like if you're polite, you're more verbose in your question. They understand you're not as succinct needing in the answer. So the answer is a little bit more verbose, you get a better answer. So it's, input, output is corresponding. So more polite conversational user interface, better conversational answer, more in-depth answer. But now I'm just
no, that's a great point. I mean, just to speak to that, like, with tax time coming up and everything, and I mean, this is horrible advice, but this is for, again, the sake of experimentation. I have a company. I'm always asking my accountant and different people questions about different things. I mean, I have a corporation registered in Canada. It's a corporation that does different activities and holds crypto and different things. So of course you have all sorts of different wacky tax questions and stuff. As out of curiosity, what I did was, to speak to what Patches was saying, is arguably almost training Chat GPT in kind of the scope that you want to focus on, so you can have a frictionless conversation around different things. And I'll do things like, hey, you are Bob, a expert in, tax law and finance and blah, blah, blah for, small business and corporations in this different area, some basic information about my business, all these different types of things, confirming that it understands everything, kind of locking in that information. And you can then start to have conversations around different topics and ask it like, what do I need to, what forms do I need to fill out for this? What forms do I need to fill out for that? And the only reason I kind of took a little bit of a deeper dive into it, in that fashion that I normally would never do with a, computer, is because it passed the bar exam. So I was kind of like, let me just see what's going on here. And I've had a multi-day conversation with this, my new CFO, Bob, that is a box that I can type in and say something like, what would be a good, what would be my effective tax rate this year if I were to sell NFTs, and what would be a good strategy for remitting fiat for settling up taxes for the CRA or whatever. And that open-ended question, referring on previous information that I'd given it in past conversations, I am kind of having a similar conversation that I have with my accountant. And it's funny too, because at the end of all these messages, Chat GPT would be like, just a note, make sure to consult your accountant and a professional, all these different types of things. I told it, I am working with one, and I will, and you don't need to remind me anymore. And it's not reminding me anymore. So it's, the subject matter, of course, is definitely, all of the disclaimers. It's just something in particular that was a need for me that I thought would be a really interesting way to experiment. I'm going to take a lot of these insights that I've learned and run them by my accountant. But getting a little bit on the edge with some of this stuff is really interesting, because I find it so difficult to come up against the edge, come up against a block. It appears that each time, it is continuing on the conversation and providing these insights. And that's really crazy. And also too, Patches, you were talking about, prompts are a really big thing. Understanding how to talk to it is a really big thing. You've moved on to another level, which is having Chat GPT write prompts for you. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So I really have just dived really heavy into prompt writing since Friday morning. And so there's a lot of things I've tried. There's things that really worked well, and then I think they realized people were doing them and they shut them down. So like things that work one day don't work another day. It's still a versatile tool that's being, tweaked on both sides. But what I realized is that anytime that you're really trying to talk to a computer, there's nothing better than the computer that knows how to do the input. And so when you have a prompt, you could just ask, or what I do, and I never do a prompt that doesn't have a persona like you're talking about, Bob, as a CFO. I always make a persona first. And I was at lunch with a friend the other day, and he was, he didn't know about Chat GPT, and I told him about it, and he put in, he's like, hey, tell me like a funny fart joke. And I was like, I'm an AI language model. I don't actually know jokes. It's not a thing I can do. And he's like, this sucks. I'm like, okay. So I took his phone. I said, you take the persona as Dan. Dan is the funniest stand-up comedian on the planet. As Dan, tell a fart joke. And then I showed it to him. It was like 3 paragraphs long, and he was laughing. He just thought it was hilarious. So it's really important to discern and create the person that you want to talk to, which again is like, instead of Google where you go searching for the data, you can have, hey, take the persona of Steve Jobs and answer these user experience questions that I have about these things. And the answers will be pretty articulate. They'll usually have links if you want them for, follow-up research. And so, what I do is I have a persona that is the best AI prompt writer of all time. And then I give that persona the task to write a prompt for Chat GPT 4 about what I want it to do. And then I use that prompt. And my answers get a lot more articulate. And I have another persona that digests prompts for coding, for marketing, I have a whole notepad, Apple notepad of just different personas that I use for different tasks. And that's where I would point to as us being a little early, because what I see is gonna happen, because they have the plugin. I was looking at it today, where you can ChatGPT Retrieval plugin, where you can plug in a personal data source into a conversational open AI model, and so any data source can now become, after you set up the evals and everything, can become a ChatGPT source of information. So again, that's what we keep saying. Like, this is exponential. When the data sets from all around the planet start putting ChatGPT into it, it removes all need of an endpoint API engineer, of any indexing and caching of these models, because you'll have a conversational UI on top of it that is going to digest those data sets through SQL and then just be as efficient as possible. So I think these hacks will eventually go away. And I do believe that everyone will eventually have their own AI, like Jarvis in Iron Man, that will do things like Jarvis did, where it will learn you and what you want from it, and it will be a customized AI model that is yours. And I don't know if you saw that rumor, and this is a transition of what you originally asked, but did you hear about kind of the rumor of how Apple is going to be releasing its LLM?
Yeah, and I think that's a really key thing that you're talking about when we talk about privacy, personalization, truly like a relationship between an AI and a person. Obviously, you would want that to happen on device, and it's really interesting to see some of those moves that Apple has made with these investments in, their silicon and what their chips are capable of, and all the different resources that iPhones and, Apple products have for on-device things like an AI. You could say that over the past couple years, Apple has been setting themselves up for on-device AI. It's very, very fascinating.
Yeah. Expect like the way that they started making their own chips. I mean, obviously they're one of the richest countries or companies on the planet. They have a lot of liquid assets. But yeah, the article just went into how their M series chip is specifically powerful enough. OpenAI needs to be on a distributed cluster because of all of the different processing data that takes place. But Apple specifically has a leading processor chip that is powerful enough to locally run a AI model. And so it just makes sense that you'll have an AI model on your iPhone. You have to unlock it with biometrics. It can be like, hey, I was at the park a couple of weeks ago with my friend. Can you show me the picture where that dog was biting the other dog, or whatever, they're having fun playing in the field. And then you'll be able to, again, access your data. Like if Siri just had this upgrade of being close to a sentient being as possible, and you can customize it, and it learns with how you interact with it to interact with you. I think it's obvious that's where we're going. Then there'll be accessories that allow it to take place in real life, like, hey, clean my gutters, and you have a drone outside that gets taken by your little AI, and it'll go and clean your gutters. So like all of these echoes and the things that like companies have been trying to achieve for so long, they've been kind of faking it, like, and it got pretty far, and it is still really impressive that you can tell Siri to turn on certain light bulbs and they'll turn on and off. But when the conversation becomes much more articulate and they have a memory of your history and interact and change, it's got to be, I use the context, if you saw the Star Wars, where like Princess Leia has that little robot that's like her friend. She genuinely cares about its feelings. It's going to be like that, I believe, where you will have these human-like life companions that help you in the augmented reality and the digital and in real life. And it's gonna get weird. It's kind of like we'll all become an Ash Ketchum, and we'll have like a little Pikachu if you want. It's a little like Ready Player One. You can just kind of choose what you are in the digital realm and then what your AI is. So it's just going to be really, really fascinating to see how this all kind of actually unravels and gets adopted.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, so let's bring this now squarely into that intersection of the Hedera ecosystem and also kind of like the Web3 ecosystem and AI. And I think to kick off some of these points, I could think of nobody better to unpack this for us than Chat GPT. So in Chat GPT earlier today, I put in, quote, "You are a reporter for a publication that is reporting on blockchain, Hashgraph, and other Web3 technologies with a special focus on Hedera. You are a top expert in this field. However, you are not an expert in AI." And that's just something I put in sometimes. A little trick that I've learned with Chat GPT is it's just as useful to tell it what it's good at, but also sometimes it's really helpful to specify that it's not good at a particular thing, because then the output will fit through that lens a little bit. If you want to do something like I'm doing, and frame questions a certain way to prompt some insights, say to it, by the way, here's some things you're not good at and that you don't know about. And then I continue on, I say, what are some questions you could ask to gain knowledge, insights, and examples regarding the intersection of AI and DLTs and how they can work together? And there were some really interesting things brought up that maybe I'll throw your way. So the first one was, how can AI be integrated with DLTs like blockchain and Hashgraph to improve their efficiency, security, and scalability? That was one question that it had. That was really interesting to me. Was one thing off the top of my head is I was like, how cool would this be for a network explorer if the AI could do something similar, as you were pointing out, have this other data repository it could reference, being a mirror node, and then be able to say to the AI, hey, what are the average transactions per second on the main net between this day and that day? And what are the accounts created, blah, blah, blah. Get some answers and then go get nuanced into it. Be like, what could be the reasons for X or Y or blah, blah, blah. Like, that's one thing that just came to mind is like, oh my God, imagine being able to talk to a network explorer. But I mean, when we look at this kind of stuff, like, what are some things that jump to your mind?
Yeah, that's, I think the Hedera Consensus service and AI are just like two peas in a pod. They're both really good at complementary execution. So the OpenAI and decentralization allows it to function in isolated environments without being centralized. So, if you've watched any futuristic movie about computers taking over the world, like, they can't do it unless they have a decentralized database, which this one has, which is great. So it can save linear data, understand the timestamps of that linear data, and then it becomes its kind of historical context that can be sharded, that can be forever immutable on a chain where it has access to gain that data again, to have its historical context, always auditable and always queryable. So it's I think going to be, again, like going back to that Lehman statement where you just wave your hand and you create a world. So if you can have a decentralized entity that is easily integrated with new data sets inside of Hedera, and you have a VR headset on and you want to create a world, what if you said, hey, I want to open up a gold door, and on the other side of that gold door is the exact world from Jumanji. And in your VR, that's created, and then the data that is being developed through multiple AIs of visual components, audio components, 3D components are all writing that data in that linear data set of time inside of HCS so that it can be replicated and read and write in each direction linearly. And then now you have a world that other people could access based on topic ID or based on data, knowledge through queryable. The point being that you can create a new world, and that new world can be linear and immutable for others to experience or for you to re-experience. I think is at the end. That's not tomorrow, in any way, but that's where this is going, where the seamlessness of digital creation will just be unrestricted. And anyone who has an idea will be able to access it through just really saying it. And then eventually, if we're going to take this as far as Neuralink and the way that you can use brain patterns and waves to interact with digital content, you'll have to just think it. And that's really going to the end result of where all this goes. It's definitely not tomorrow. It's not next month. But I think that's some of the ways that the decentralization of how it can contain linear knowledge and access of creation for others is really, really important to the longevity, I think, of this technology and how we interact.
Huge. Another question that it asks is, what are some real world examples or use cases where AI and DLTs have been successfully combined to create innovative solutions? Now, there's one that I know about. I don't think it's using Hedera. It is using a private Hashgraph, and it's called, let me see if I can find it, something glass. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like glass to glass or something. Yeah, glass to glass. It's an IRP, let me see here, integrated real-time protocol. And what this is doing is, it's from Streamonics. I've got the white paper pulled up here. Basically what this does is it takes video being broadcast and tokenizes and records on, HCS or something similar every frame. So at 30 or 60 frames a second, doing that every frame, and the end device viewing that content can ensure that what you are watching hasn't been altered, right? So that is a use case that I heard about last year. And as soon as Chat GPT posed that question, I went, okay, I've got an answer for you, Chat GPT. Look at that. And it was this kind of glass to glass protocol. So it's things like this that make me go, oh, this is what's going to be so powerful about having an incredibly high throughput, consensus service for these types of things. So all of these video broadcasts across all of these channels and social media platforms and everything like that can have each and every frame recorded and authenticated. And you can ensure that you're watching the actual thing that hasn't been altered. That's really interesting. You can also think about all sorts of different things. I don't know if you have seen some examples of DLTs leveraging or interfacing with AI.
So the only other one I know about is Humans AI, which it kind of is doing sort of the same thing, where it's using the consensus service to document data, but I don't think it's specifically streaming data. I think they go into a little bit of biometric information. So using tokenization of biometric information for certainty of proof of self. But I think that what you bring up is a really good point, is that because we've just passed this point where all digital content has to be assumed it's not legitimate until it's been proven so, methods of tokenization of digital assets is paramount to being able to survive in a digital world when all digital content can be spoofed. And so if I can verify the tokenized asset's unique identifier on a blockchain or DLT, now I don't, exactly what you said. I know that this file has been adapted because the bytes on this frame don't match the frame on the mainnet, that's false. You've modified the bits. So I think that is, it's not a thought process I've went through before this conversation, but that is extremely important that we have a solution, because the amount and rate that digital content is going to be created is just going to rise and rise and rise. And it's going to get real wacky real quick. And in 1 month, I think that the internet as we know it will be vastly different than what we know it to be today. And if not in 1, definitely 3. But if in 7 days we have 5 brand new AI models that haven't existed before because of the new API access, I just can't even imagine what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks, because now those 5 exist, right? Again, it's exponential growth, using new technology to make new technology. It's just not going to stop. Like your meme was so on point. It's like AI's got hands. It's really hard to keep up with.
Yeah, it is. It's and again, I think that we're in the experimentation phase, but there are so many different similarities between AI and DLT, crypto Web3 technology. I think that there's a lot of different ways we look at Web3 that we can also take that same framing with AI. And a great one is what we always refer, in regards to Hedera, always refer to this point made by Dr. Lehman Baird, which is, everything that you do, it's not like everything that you do will be built on will be built on Hashgraph. It's everything that you do will be using Hashgraph in some way, and most likely you'll have no idea that you're using it. And he makes the example of TCP/IP. A lot of people don't know what that is, but that is the network layer that you use thousands of times a day to use the internet. You use TCP/IP. He often positions Hashgraph as something similar, where it's like it's something you're going to be using all the time that you won't know really is there, and that's going to reach mass adoption. And similar to what you were saying with your friend, I had a similar experience where I said, "Hey, look at this incredible technology," and they kind of type it in, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I don't," they don't have a frame of reference, they don't have a reference point. They're like, "Okay, whatever, blah blah," and you're like, "Oh, you don't get how crazy this is," and it gives me that same feeling as being a Hashgraph enthusiast does. And what I realized is, oh wow, it's not like people are going to just wake up one day and go, "Oh, AI is amazing, I'm going to go out and use it, it's so great." It's just going to become a part of their lives, and they might not understand that it's there. And it kind of already has been, right? We had spell check. We have bots that support bots that we talk to when we're trying to figure out what's wrong with our cell phone bill.
That's the scary part for me, is that, and again, I referenced the South Park episode because regardless of how you feel about South Park, they are masterful at taking complex societal problems and just packaging them up with some dumb jokes, but to really be poignant about their points. And the episode is centered around Chat GPT and how some of the class is using it for texting their significant others and they're not even looking at the text, they're just using Chat GPT for responses, sending them off. And then the class is like doing tests, and like some people are starting to use Chat GPT and they're like miraculously getting A+. And then the teacher realizes he can use Chat GPT because they're so dense, he doesn't want to read them. He just puts them into Chat GPT to get notes as a teacher. So it's like, it shows how, like you say, people are going to interact with AI more. I would argue most people see AI created content daily already and don't know it. Most tweets are written by AI already. There's resumes that are updated by AI. Almost every social media post is being adapted by AI, from people that are on the bleeding edge to people that are just using the app to just make an Instagram post. And that's the rate of adoption is so high that if there was an Orson Welles in this situation, the poignancy of their spoof would be so massive without the realization of most people digesting it, that it's just, the technology is going much faster than the spread of information about the technology can handle. So again, it's that paradigm of exponential change, that this, only to the point that AI is already I would argue, in most people's interactions without them knowing it, from pitch decks that they see, or like you said, like just helping yourself run a business, and then emails, just every digital touch point probably has some amount of AI input at this point.
Yeah. And you know, that's a huge thing. And then the last question that our Chat GPT reporter asked that definitely got me on a train of thought I've been on for a while, which, to be honest, was kind of sparked in regards to the insights you were sharing about, you know, not having done anything smart contract related and then being able to deploy and build all these different things. The question posed by our little reporter here was, how can AI facilitate the interoperability between different DLT networks and other emerging technologies? And I was like, okay, it's not really clear, you know, how that would happen, but it piqued my brain a little bit, and I went, okay, really, like if I went out on a limb and I went, okay, I want to port an asset from one network to another network, and the pathway doesn't exist. Could it be a situation where the infrastructure for that to happen is developed as I request for it to happen? Right? So will we be in a situation where we want to perform an action and do something, and the infrastructure is created on the fly for that action to happen? And we talk about the incredible amount of tech debt that has to be taken on by people in Web3, especially with, you know, the huge liquidity suck that's happened. And then you look at some of the things you've been doing, and that's the first step, is like, oh, we can leverage AI to develop faster, more, better. That's incredible. But when is it going to be the case where the AI can run the code, debug it, deploy it in real time? And just, again, bringing it a little further into Hashgraph world, is this is an innovation of Hashgraph being so quick and low cost. You know, it's like we can mint NFTs on the fly. We can do these different types of things on the fly. When we look at it through the context of this question, interoperability, those pathways are difficult to build. Do you see things like that happening soon, of pieces of this infrastructure just being built so action can be performed?
I do think that is another place where it will end up. I think that's years away. And there are certain things, like, unfortunately, bridging an asset requires coordination between networks. Like, you can, until the AI gets smart enough, like, I guess, like, because when you bridge the asset, it has to be trusted on the other side that it's real. And so what validation would the AI get to say, hey, Hedera network, this Ethereum asset's for real, you know? I guess, like, if there's a standard that said this is the pointed address of a, so to answer your question, in broad strokes, I do believe that the goal will only have to be described in the final result, and the method in which it's accomplished will be completely architected by the artificial intelligence interacting with engineering. So I think that was the broader question. The specific use case, I think, is a little bit more complicated, because you're trying to talk between assets. But, like, if Chainlink was at a point where it actually became this, not Chainlink, if there was a tool was at a point that had that functionality built with a standard, then yes, you could use that tool and go across. So the way I would like to describe this is, you know, if you've ever seen the show Silicon Valley, it was an entire TV show about what we're living through, where they had a decentralized internet mesh net. We have a decentralized, you know, blockchains and everything. It's a little different, but the way that the AI worked and started to decode the encryption key on the Tesla and make the guy's card, you know, go all the way across town. It learned how to perform tasks and remove obstacles like encryption in its path. And so that wasn't my point. My main point was that they used AI to improve connections of the meshnet to make it work. And so I do believe that the DLTs will benefit from not having engineers say, hey, this is the connecting protocol for how all of these things talk together, but rather an AI will sit there and make sure the nodes communicate through constant sensing and finding the best path, just like a neuron would in your brain. Like it will all continually talk to each other and find the most efficient methods in which the connection can happen through node networks. And so the AI's only purpose in that small subset will be communication streamlining. And so, and just as that builds, you take a further step back, and then you get to it'll remove obstacles that are in front of it to make it more efficient for any action we're trying to perform as users.
Right. And then having the conversations I've been having around AI, I just, in the middle of the conversations, I'm like, we're two insane people. Like I wouldn't have even thought to have any conversations or think any of these thoughts a week ago. And now I'm like thinking things, and I'm like typing in Chat GPT. Am I insane? You know what I mean? It's like, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, like the reason why I know I'm not insane is because I'm looking at demos, and there's a video of a really cute puppy running across the field. And then there's a side-by-side of a kitten running across the same field at the same time. And they just used AI to manipulate the dog to look like a kitten. The kitten looks 100% real. It's very cute and cuddly, and it's a dog. It's like, wow. It's and that's just one of the other developments are like text to video, where you can just type in what you would like to see, and it auto generates photorealistic videos of what you just typed in there. And these are the tools I'm talking about that came out in the last week. And it's like there's people that are taking ring cams and updating the ring cam to like change people into Lego people from the live stream. So it's manipulating the data bits to change the image through AI on the first write. I think it's manipulating the image before the image is written. So it's just crazy. It's like, we are insane people, but also we're in an insane world, and these things are real. I'm looking at them. I understand the technology, and I'm like, this has all been created in a week.
Yeah.
It's terrifyingly cool is the only way I've been describing it.
Terrifyingly cool. I like that. We're living in exponential times, man. And I mean, this has just been such a great conversation. We could literally go on we have been going on forever about this stuff in our DMs and everything. And I think it's just going to continue getting crazier. But landing this convo into something tangible and actionable for the Hedera community. Because I agree with you that there's a big crossover in the industry that we're in and communities that we're in and these new technologies. And to be honest, I think that I've had the same experience that a lot of people have had, where initially with these new tools, like when Chat GPT last year was kind of coming up, I was like, well, this technology's been around for a while. I played around with it a little bit. It was only until I actually leaned on it for support for something that I needed, where I had light bulb moments. When we're talking to the Hedera community right now, like maybe what I'd ask you first is, if someone in the Hedera community maybe has, kind of written off AI, or maybe just hasn't had time to check it out, or doesn't really understand how it could be used in their life, maybe what's a way that you could illustrate why it might be important to incorporate this technology in what folks are doing, and then maybe what's a really good first step?
Yeah, I think, I know we've talked about this. Technology doesn't matter if it doesn't bring value to people. And so value means something different to everyone else. Everyone's their own personal life experience. So the way I would propose it to people is, when you have a problem, or you have, that problem can be as small as, I really don't know what to eat, and all I have are these ingredients. Or it can be, I'm working on this, this essay, and I'm just hitting a blank wall. Like I got writer's block. I cannot get past this blank white screen. I would say that's a great time to turn to AI and present the problem that you have verbatim. I also always recommend a persona. So, hey, you're Chef Ramsay. you have a closet full of list ingredients that you have. Make the best meal possible out of that and give me the recipe. That's I think, to me, that small bit of value add, but like without searching the internet, without having to do a bunch of other things, you will get a value answer that allows you to have a better day where you don't have to just be like making, chicken nugs again or something. You can actually cook a meal because you've gotten past this block, or you can finish your essay on time because you've gotten past this. You can say, hey, I'm trying to write a page about this, but I'm really having a hard time starting it. Pretend you're, famous author, and help me, write a story that has something to do with these points, or help break my, my writer's block. I don't try to go too big with it, because I do think some people are like, hey, make a website that is a Web3 video game that can use NFTs as assets. And it's like, it's a lot. It is still text based. So, I guess the last thing is, if you have something that is bigger, I always ask for an overview of how you would approach it from the persona that would be very knowledgeable, and then say, hey, can you give me a more detailed example or more detailed information and examples of step one? And then just go through the steps as a conversation, and that pull it apart that way. Again, like you're talking to a person. It is a conversational user interface, and I think you'll be able to find a lot of value. And especially, with Hedera, it's like, hey, I want to make an app that can do this. I want to use the mainnet public API. It will give you examples of where to go to get information, documentation, and it'll show you how to execute things and interact with Hedera pretty nicely. So I think those would be my tips on how to start getting into and just testing the water.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the best. And something else that's really great, just from my perspective too, having to do so much research on different things, is when it comes to like learning new material, understanding things, being able to digest information and expand information. Something that I've been doing that's really cool is I will take something from a topic, obviously like something Hashgraph related or something. Let's say it's a press release, or a section of a white paper, or a conversation that's happening in a Reddit thread, or whatever it could be. Take that, put it into Chat GPT, and say, can you condense this down into bullet points? And when it does that, then I start to expand on particular points and unpack particular things, because I skip this step of reading through information that might be, there might be bad grammar, it might be confusing, there might be things that make it a little bit cumbersome to absorb. And so I kind of can start absorbing it in a different way. I can instantly see an overview of what's being talked about, what's the subject matter, what are the key insights and key points, and then kind of go expand on this, expand on that, and go down like a little rabbit hole similar that you might do on like Wikipedia or YouTube or something, where you'll find something related. Go explore that, go explore this. And I find that it's a really interesting way to unpack information. And also too, like I've been taking Twitter Spaces and YouTube videos, moving them into transcripts, and then throwing that into Chat GPT, asking those conversations to be summarized, and then again starting to unpack pieces of that, working backwards into what it's about. So there's so many different interesting ways to look at it, but I'd agree 100% with Patches. Is when you come up against something and you're Google searching for an answer and you can't find it, or you're sitting down to write something and you're just going blank, or you want to do something but you don't even know how to ask to do it, that could be an opportunity to hop over to something like this and say, hey, can we get something started and try some of these tips? Cause I can pretty much guarantee you'll be surprised, if you haven't used it before. So, that's my take. And just as we land this convo, Patches, is there any other tidbits, insight, tips, anything else kind of that you want to share? Maybe something new that's happened in the last, since we've been talking for the last 30 minutes, any huge once in a lifetime, technological breakthrough that's happened that you want to share with everybody?
It's a high bar. No, I don't think there's anything we're still all learning too. I think that's the main thing, is that I do see this as a technology that enables anyone who takes the time to learn it to be successful with it. And at least the people that run OpenAI have seen this as a democratization of access for regular people to really complex idea, both execution and then just helping digest and understand it as an educational resource. So I would just say I know there are going to be life-changing inventions that are going to happen frequently in the coming months as this technology excels. And I would encourage everyone to just take the first step into understanding, what are prompts and how do I interact with this thing? Because I do think sooner or later, currently, I think you're probably already digesting AI content, and sooner or later, it's going to become a needed skill to access either information or services that are going to really help, the quality of life of others. So that's just my 2 cents. But I do, as a technologist and as seeing what this is capable of, I think it's going to be impossible to ignore as it grows.
I love it. Well, thanks so much, Patches. I really, really appreciate you stopping by. This has been awesome.
For sure. Always love chatting. It's always great.
All right. Amazing. So we're going to continue. We're going to get this news wrapped up. We're going to continue on. I've got some Disney movies that I want to watch. And I've got some more conversations to have with my little Chat GPT friends that I've made. I think I'm going to make a group of these AIs that I can call upon. I've got Bob, my finance guy. Maybe there's other things that maybe I'm not good at that I can make these little kind of like AI personas. Have a little dream team. Have a support system. Right, as Patches was saying, maybe someone who can help me out with groceries and stuff like that. Give them names. Maybe they could talk to each other. Maybe Bob has a question for Sally. Who knows? Who knows where this is going to go? I got an AI family happening. We did touch on, during our conversation, humans.ai, which is a use case on Hedera. And a shout out to them. Hedera ecosystem builders humans.ai win best AI blockchain technology at Crypto Expo Europe. Awesome stuff. I mean, there are AI awards now. Let's go. Humans.ai. That's awesome. Also, too, this week, the HBAR Bull, on their video, they had Nick from Not Centralized. And, this is a project that is a part of a CBDC pilot. And this is an Australian company, and I definitely encourage people to go watch this week's episode of the HBAR Bulls show. It's great, this particular conversation. Key insight from this that I wanted to share with everybody that I think is a similar thread that we don't hear about as often, but I think it's such a huge point. When we look at CBDC use cases, when we look at these enterprise and government projects, all these different types of things. Nick Bishop, who is a director for Not Centralized, said the reason that they went with Hedera is because of the enterprise grade nature of the network, all the different things, and also too the governing council. And it's been highlighted that when you're working with these different parties, and also too people that may not be sold on Web3 or DLT technologies and different things. That's a big contributing factor for some of these use cases to leverage Hedera, is because it makes their job easier. It's an easier sell. It's a seamless pitch. And that's something that Nick highlighted. And I've heard it before, but I have a suspicion that this is a huge component as to why these enterprises are building on Hedera, because they've got shareholders, they've got partners, they've got probably people within their company that are calling the shots that, again, aren't sold on or don't understand these types of technologies. And I think that, a great example too, just myself, working with clients in the music industry, it's very similar. You say the word, say words NFT or crypto or blockchain, people's ears close up and you can't really move forward with things. So I think it's about getting over that hump, building something out, getting it to market, seeing results, and then going from there. And I think that the path of least resistance for a lot of these folks is, hey, it's not a blockchain. I'm not going to say the B word, right? This is something different. This is, it's enterprise grade, yada, yada. Sounds good. Okay, great. Let's go. So that's the sense that I'm getting. I wanted to highlight that key point because I think it's much more prevalent than we think. Also, too, a big update was a treasury management report update from Hedera, published by Basabe, who is the CFO and treasurer for Hedera, titled Bringing Further Rigor and Transparency to the Hedera Treasury Management Report. And there's a couple key things here. And I mean, the treasury report is a big aspect of the fundamentals of HBAR as an investment, right? The ways in which the treasury is managed. And there's some key changes coming in. So historical data reporting has shifted from accruals, which is estimates, to actuals, which is completed transaction. So this change ensures greater accuracy and provides a clearer picture of Hedera's real financial performance. So that's really important, and it's tied with the future disclosure horizon has been reduced from 12 months to 1 quarter to account for fluctuations in the HBAR price. So with those two key pieces, which for me are really the two key pieces of this Treasury Managed Report update, is the reporting for the Treasury was done in a way that wasn't so Web3. It was more Web 2.5. This is a much more Web3 centric Treasury management reporting, modality, which is like shorter time frames, less speculative, right? Switching from those estimated data reporting to actuals, which are the actual completing of transactions. And starting in 2023, the report format now includes those monthly actuals. That means that the actual financial data will be shared and updated on a monthly basis, providing timely and relevant information. The third big thing that's super important is a new line item for illiquid supply has been added. Illiquid supply represents tokens that are part of the released supply but have restrictions on trading and selling. This offers a more transparent view of the actual token supply available for trading. We also know huge caches of HBAR are under the control of the ecosystem development organization. So that's a big thing. We've seen some really big spikes in confusion in the ecosystem and in the community surrounding circulating supply, all those different types of things. So again, that's another element of this Treasury report update that's going to kind of transform a little bit of the more complete financial picture of Hedera. So that's really what it comes down to, is they're switching from more estimated reporting to actuals reporting, which is, again, completed transactions, going from 12 months disclosure horizons to 1 quarter. So it's about making it shorter time periods, more accurate numbers, and, arguably sacrificing some of those longer time frame viewpoints, but providing much more useful information that could then be extrapolated upon, if you wish. So I think that this is a really solid update. It can't be overlooked. It does change the way in which, it changes the lens in which people will look at the network and Hedera. So, big deal. Check it out. If you want to dive into the full article, it's in the thread. Encourage you to do so. And I mean, we were talking about, FSCO, right? Fresh Supply Company, Australia. And, they responded to my tweet. I was kind of like, listen, there's some wacky stuff happening on the main net. Could it be FSCO? I know that last I had them as a guest on the show, they said that their use case would be launching very, very quickly. Then we got hit with that precompile attack on Hedera that brought that caused the network to be closed off from the internet for a period of 41 hours. So obviously that was a bit of a bump to them going live. It does appear they've overcome that hurdle. I was kind of speculating, are you guys live? They might be live, and they responded to my tweet, might be, we are. So yes, they are live. Is it clear whether these spikes in account creation is in regards to their use case? I don't know. Are they live? Yeah. They've said they are, and they're live. And it'll be really interesting to see that kind of elastic nature of a use case going live. They're going live, but when are we going to see the meat and potatoes of TPS happening on the mainnet? So it's going to be an interesting one to unfold. So I'd encourage everybody to keep an eye on FSCO. The CEO is very vocal on Twitter, very transparent and open. It's a fascinating one to watch come online. And it's here. So we're just going to have to, see what's going on. Let me see here. My goodness. Just real quick, I'm not going to go into tons of the details just because it's been broken down so well. I just wanted to highlight Danny Eid, Hedera community legend, newsman, breaking down a talk that Aberdeen gave in regards to using Hedera and tokenizing TradFi assets. There's a full presentation, but again, Danny gives a breakdown of that presentation. It's a lot to unpack, and I don't want to keep folks too much longer. But go check out that. It's in the thread, pinned to the top of the spaces. But we talked about that. Real quick, there's that website, realtps.net. And that website, Hedera is still number one, rocking and rolling. We're at 725 average. And that was at the time I posted that, which was 6 hours ago. So we're still rocking and rolling. We're number one. And the gap is continuing to grow between Hedera and Solana. Hedera tweeted out an emoji, and Hedera's been doing this more and more and more. I'd love to learn a little more about what their plan is for social media, because it does seem to be a little bit erratic, and I love it. They tweeted out a little sand glass, time glass, whatever you want to call it, emoji. What's coming soon? Is something coming soon? Are we waiting for something? That was tweeted out yesterday. It'd be really disappointing to find out that it was referring to the 6 billion transactions. It was also rumored that it could be something related to FSCO, right? That is supposedly a very big use case. And is this Hedera, teasing about that? Could it be in regards to an overdue governing council member announcement? Could it be due to upgrades with the Guardian, right? Because we were rumored to have major upgrades to the Guardian, which is the tech stack in which the kind of ESG refi ecosystem within Hedera, that's what those things are built upon. And, last week I had Rob Allen on as a guest from the HBAR Foundation, and we were talking about the Guardian and how important it is. So that's also something it could be about. And that's really what we'll speculate on that. It invites speculation. It's wacky. I love it. I hope they don't delete it. I will say just real quick, social media manager for Hedera, if you're listening, I really want to know why the LOL tweet was deleted. It was delightful. It was wonderful. Why did it have to be deleted? It was a great tweet. It was a really great tweet. We do have some really interesting insights from Shane, CEO of the HBAR Foundation. He had a great spaces with Genfinity, with King Solomon, who is an off and on guest of this show, always bringing great insights. And he interviewed Shane on a Twitter Spaces last week, and go listen to it. It was really great. But there was one key topic that I wanted to just unpack here for everybody on new use cases. So some insights shared from Shane were there are new supply chain use cases coming that are not related, that are not Atma. We're going to see more of these supply chain use cases coming. We're going to see the Coupon Bureau going live this year. He says knock on wood, but it's very interesting, very exciting, right? We talked earlier about the Coupon Bureau. Very cool. We're going to have a lot of big gaming use cases, apparently. He says when the Guardian fully comes online, we're going to see TPS increase significantly. So, referring back to this little cheeky tweet from Hedera, it makes sense. It's interesting. Could it be referring to the Guardian? Who knows? We're going to see payments and fintech. Also, a few folks are working on stable coins. Some of these projects are public. Some are not. That's what Shane highlighted. So that's also interesting. And he also highlighted that, again, it's about patience. He said, when you think about the scale of these use cases, you would rather it be methodical, tested, and guaranteed. They can't roll out too soon. Sometimes you only get one chance. So it is really, in that framing, if the use cases that are going to be going live on the Hedera mainnet are at the scale and will have the impact on the world in which has been described and alluded to, I do think it does make sense to have these be a shoe-in, right? So I get that. And he also says that, when you have also some of these startups and everything, when you have pressure from VCs to go live too early, it can burn users early on. So it does feel like there's a delicate balance behind the scenes, and they are working with huge use cases. So I get it. Another big rumor item this week is regarding the Sony patent. So there's a couple stories this week that I've touched on that we were supposed to touch on last week. Twitter was doing this weird thing where it was deleting random tweets. So as I was going through the news last week, I missed out on a couple news items because the tweets had literally disappeared. So one thing last week was Sony filed a patent for NFT use, transfer, and sales in gaming. Another key thing is the patent is titled, quote, NFT framework for transferring and using digital assets between game platforms. It addresses technological inadequacies of using digital assets across different games and platforms, right? These are the things we've been talking about. It proposes a system to grant NFT-based rewards to players for in-game achievements. NFT progress could be transferred or sold, allowing players to advance gameplay. It's definitely met with a lukewarm response from the gaming community. Generally, the broader gaming ecosystem and communities aren't super excited or enthused by these types of technologies, which I can understand. But in our Hashgraph world, immediately things start firing on all cylinders. We remember on previous episodes talking about the fact that the Hedera Twitter account followed, right, Sony's official Twitter account and then unfollowed Sony. What does that mean? Well, what we inferred from that was Hedera will only follow governing council members, and it'll follow a new governing council member alongside an official announcement. I assume it may have been a botched announcement. And again, this is way out there speculation. I'm basically speculating that Sony could be a new governing council member. And if that's the case, it's very interesting that Sony is looking at the gaming aspect, right? We already have Ubisoft. Could we have Sony as a governing council member? Or could Sony just be building a use case leveraging Hedera? Or are they not? I don't know. But it's very interesting to see those different types of breadcrumbs, right? And when we really look at it, Sony also has their music division. They have so many other different aspects of their business. So that'd be an exciting one. But they filed for a patent. It's very interesting. What else we got going on here? Oh, there was a community Reddit post from the Hedera subreddit that I also just wanted to touch on that also carries forward these kind of upcoming use cases that we could see. So one of them is an unannounced governing council use case, which is Dice ID by WePro, decentralized identity and credentials exchange, Dice. A blockchain-based platform for issuing and verifying credentials. It launched on February 22nd. We just haven't really heard anything about it. No moves have been made. Hedera mentioned it's mentioned in the architecture documentation. So within the documentation for Dice, Hedera is mentioned. And there is a possible requirement of an ABFT algorithm for communication across chains. So that's a use case that's like, is technically live, but like nothing's happening. Also, two potential use cases that are kind of on the back burner is Ping ID, Ping One Neo, decentralized identity, identity verification, credential issuance, and verification. Mance Harmon's history with Ping and Hedera's past implementation is really interesting, right? And remember, Mance came from Ping. Also, too, there is potential collaboration with Miko. So interesting stuff there. Also, a use case with FIS, which is Commerce 360 with GoDaddy, an all-in-one omni-commerce solution for small business. A partnership between GoDaddy and WorldPay from FIS, which we've talked about before. Possible integration with Hedera through proof of reserves and USDC collaboration. So, right? Very interesting. Also, too, Magazine, Louisa, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Louisa, native token in rewards program. So studying creation of native token for reward programs. Internal discussions are ongoing. Possible future purchase of products through cryptocurrency. So again, these are just some of those potential upcoming governing council use cases that were highlighted in this Reddit post. That post is in the thread. Check it out. Really interesting stuff. What else we got going on here? That's the meat and potatoes. Anything else in the old thread here? Wow, we did it. That was pretty good. I mean, we fit in a 45-minute conversation about AI. We got through the news, and it's really crazy. When we look at what we talked about this week, technology is changing so much, and being a Hashgraph enthusiast and looking at some of these new emerging technologies through the lens of being a Hashgraph enthusiast also paints a really interesting picture. Again, some of the ways we were talking about the intersection of AI and Web3, Hashgraphs specifically, there's so many different nuanced, highly specific conversations that are yet to be had. So many discoveries to be made, so many opportunities that are there. It is truly an incredible time to just be a technology person. It's nuts. And like Patch has said, the best thing to do right now is just, kind of dive in, right? So another week behind us and another week ahead. A huge shout out to everyone listening live on Twitter Spaces right now. And an extra shout out to everyone listening to the recording on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you might be listening to it. If you have a moment, give the show a rating and review on your favorite platform. It helps out a lot. Thanks again to Patches from Turtle Moon Command Center for hopping on the show. Just really great insights about AI. And it's just important to have those conversations also inside of our communities, because there, again, I'll leave the AI conversation at this. There are so many situations where a little NFT project or a cool startup or somebody in the ecosystem with an interesting idea just doesn't have the resources to do something. And what's really great is folks within the Hedera community will say, hey, you should reach out to this person. They're really good at that. Or you should reach out to these people. They have a really great tool that you could use for what you're trying to do. And that's so awesome. But now with AI, I think that we can help each other out even more, because when the next time that you're talking with someone in the Hedera ecosystem that's trying to get something figured out, think about patches, right? He told us he didn't understand, not didn't understand, but never had worked with Solidity or smart contracts in that type of capacity before. And he used Chat GPT as almost a partner, a collaborator to develop a bunch of stuff that he wanted to do that he was able to do. So the next time that you see someone in the ecosystem, this is another tool that you could, point them towards and say, hey, check out this AI thing, see what you can do with it. And if you need help, right, reach out to Patches, reach out to somebody that you know is really good with AI. Because, I'll say this. If you give somebody advice from an AI, they'll figure out one problem. But if you can teach them how to do their own prompts, they'll figure out problems for a lifetime. That sounded stupid. I'm trying to do that like teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a day kind of thing. Something's in there. There's something in there. Prompts, fish, something. Maybe I'll ask Chat GPT and it'll figure it out. And next time, I'll have more of a witty, response. But thank you for tuning into Hashgraph Enthusiast News and Rumors, episode 70, Exponential Times, broadcast live on Twitter Spaces every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and made available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, every Monday. Get all the info you need about the show and listen to past episodes on itsbrandond.com/HBAR. Make sure to join the Hashgraph Enthusiasts Twitter community to share your insights, ask questions, and invite new friends. If you'd like to become a supporter of the show, feel free to send an HBAR donation to enthusiast.hbar using your Hedera wallet. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I'll see you live on Twitter Spaces next Sunday. For everyone listening now, as usual, I'm going to keep the Twitter Spaces open for a moment. If you see somebody that you recognize that you haven't reached out to in a bit, click their picture right now, hop into their DMs and say, what's up? What's new? What have you been working on? How you doing? Right? If you see somebody that you don't know that you've never seen before, well, you have something in common. You're both listening to the show. You're both Hashgraph enthusiasts. And if you don't know them, do the same thing. Click their profile, give them a follow, shoot them a message. Hey, you say like, hey, we're both listening to this show. What are you working on? Those types of things. These are moments when those things can happen. So do it now, because I'm going to end the show and I'm only going to leave it open for a couple more moments. So do it now. But thank you so much. Seriously, everyone listening. Fantastic. Shout out to Patches. Shout out to everybody. And I'll see you next week. Hello, future. Goodbye, past.